All right. Here we are with Ramon Matthews Jr. back in Australia, working with George Kambosos Jr. Man, how's it feel to be back?
It feels good to be back.
Enjoying your time here?
Yeah.
What brings you down here? What's going on here? You've been brought back into the team. Where's your situation? Where were you for the last fight?
Getting ready for the world title. Getting ready to smash Richardson Hitchins.
Talk a little bit about you were there with George in the preparations for the Lomachenko fight and the Maxi Hughes victory before that. Obviously, you saw the last fight against Jake Wiley. What do you see now in George Kambosos Jr. to what you saw?
I mean, he just got his rhythm back, got his fire back, coming off a red-hot win. You know, credit to Jake Wiley for taking the fight. He fought at home, looked great, shots were firing. He's back hungry again, you know what I mean? So, I'm excited.
What do you think about this fight? Obviously, there's been a lot of build-up last year. Richard Hitchens beat our own Liam Paro in the world title fight, and then the next day, Hitchens called George out. Did you honestly think when he called George out, did we get to this stage that the fight would be happening?
No, because when he called him out, he could have made the fight already. But
well, you didn't think he wanted to take it, or
no?
Why not?
I mean, if you at this level, if you want to fight somebody, you send the offer, you get it done. You don't fight them through the internet. You fight him in the ring. So, I don't know. I don't know.
What's your take on Richard Hitchens? You know, I know you've had a bit to do with the amateur system over in America.
Richard Hitchens, to me, is, I don't know him personally, but he's very basic as a fighter. You know, from what I see on TV and when I seen him at the Gustavo Limos, because I was there, I don't really see nothing that. What's he do great? Like, what's he do really special? Like, what do you see when you see him? Like, wow, Teofimo can't do that, or Lomachenko can't do that, or Devin Haney can't do that, or Bouts Ennis doesn't have that kind of, like, he's very average. He's a very average guy, and I think he talks better than he fights.
When you talk about that, you know, and George has actually said a couple of times on Twitter, you ain't 1/10 Richardson of Devin Haney. You've worked with Devin Haney before. Do you believe what George is saying there is right, that he's not?
I agree 100%. I agree 100%, because the thing with Richardson Hitchens is, he's a fighter. You know, you got to respect him for getting in the ring. You got to respect him for taking the fights. You know what I mean? But in terms of overall talent, he's not up there with Lomachenko, who's an all-time great southpaw. He's not up there with Devin Haney, who's a purebred, pure boxer.
Lopez?
Yeah, Teofimo. No way. He's not. There's levels. You know, I feel like he's not a great fighter.
When you talk about that, he's already talking about, you know, once he beats George, he's looking at Teofimo and the winner of Barboza. He's interested in Matias and that. Is he sort of, since he's beaten Paro, he's sort of looking like he's on that level with those other guys?
Yeah.
To George's credit, who he's actually fought.
Right. I don't know what in his mind is making him think that way, but you got to earn that. You got to get in there. You got to get in the fire. You got to come out. You got to go back in it. George has done that. Devin's done that. Loma's done that. Like Teofimo, these guys have done that. The Josh Taylor fights. I don't feel like Richardson Hitchens has done that, and I don't think that once he does, I don't think it's going to go well for him at all. Starting with George Kambosos. When
you talk about George now at 140, you know, I mean, the last fight against Jake Wiley, he looked extremely well early. You know, got a little bit of a cut. You know what I mean? And just, you know, clearly won the fight, you know what I mean? Have you had to change too much of what you saw in that fight to bring to this camp now for Richardson? Like, is it a whole different strategy?
No, not at all. I mean, George Kambosos is a tremendous fighter, former undisputed champion of the world at lightweight. Those type of things don't happen by accident. The only thing that you really have to change when your opponent is a little bit different is the way you approach them, slight little tweaks to the game plan, but the power is there, the condition's there, the heart is there, the hunger is there. So, I mean, there's nothing really changes but the guy in front of you.
You weren't around in 2021, but a lot of other people like us were. We see now more the ferocious hunger back in George. He's sort of a little bit more amped up.
Yeah.
He's sort of hammering people online again. You know, he's chin-checking people. He's calling out Fugazi media, which we have a lot here. You know, I mean, he's pretty amped up and angry again.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't really see that. I saw him amped up for both the Devin Haney fights of the Loma, but he's gone back to that old ways. Is this a new experience for you, seeing this in George for the first time?
No, because when I met him, he was like that.
Okay.
You know, when I met him, he was the same George Kambosos. It's just he was in fights where he's waiting for that big fight with Loma. You know, he's waiting for these big, you know, changing weight divisions and things like that. So now they're finally here. These things are finally upon us. So now he can express those things because now it's here. And it starts at Richardson Hitchins at 140 for the world title.
So big fights coming up very shortly.
Yeah.
Ryan and Rolly, Teo and Barboza, Haney and Ramirez. I want to get to Ryan first.
Yeah, those are all great fights. I'm glad that a card of that magnitude is happening, especially being able to happen in the United States versus being in Saudi. So I'm excited. I'm happy for those guys that those fights are happening.
Ryan looks very, very focused.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, hasn't been that online that much.
Yeah.
I don't think he's smoking and he's not popping lots of pills and shit and he's not getting drunk and thrown out of LA nightclubs anymore.
Yeah. No,
you know,
Ryan has talent. You know, he's a talented fighter as much as popular as he is and as much as he's gotten in trouble in the past. Like there's a real fighter inside of all that trouble he used to get in and stuff like that. I'm glad that he's more focused now, and I think that his fight with Rolly, I'm favoring him to win that fight.
How's he win? Did you get it done early?
I'm favoring him to win by knockout. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go to Teofimo Barboza next. Barboza, who was successful over there against Jack Cattrall, and I thought fought a great fight the whole way through the 12 rounds.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that fight? And Teo hasn't been really that active. You know what I mean? He's coming back in a big fight, back in New York.
He hasn't, but Teofimo's still Teofimo. Like, we've seen him take, you know, he'll look lackluster against Sandor Martin, people like that, and he'll come back and just absolutely wash Josh Taylor. So, I mean, I'm expecting him to, when you're on a card like that, you want to outperform the other guys on the card. So I think he'll be up for that fight. I think he'll probably dominate Arnold Barboza.
You think he'll get the victory?
Yeah.
Teo's spoken a lot about, you know, Jerron Ennis, Crawford, so many different names. You've seen him at obviously 35. You've seen him now at 40.
Yeah.
Do you see Teofimo that how he could probably cause some damage up at 47? Or
Yes.
You reckon he can do that?
Yes. I'm not saying he'll beat. Don't quote me that he'll beat these guys, but I think he'll be a formidable fighter at 147 if and when he decides to go up.
When you look at guys like, you know, Barrios and guys like Brian Norman, is that sort of the first steps, if he was victorious against Barboza, the fights that he'd probably want to go for next?
Yeah. I mean, he could go up and beat those guys, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's bigger fights for him at 140 in his division.
Ryan?
Well, Ryan's going to go to welterweight, I'm assuming. I haven't seen Ryan make 140 on the head in a while, so I don't know that he will be in the 140 division, but I think Teofimo at 140 still has some good fights there for him.
Last but not least, Devin Haney, who's been very, very quiet the last 3 or 4 months. Obviously, a lot of shit that him and his team and obviously his father's been through.
Mm-hmm.
What are you expecting from him in his first fight back since Ryan? I think this fight's at 144, is it? Or something, 143. Ramirez, a very, very tough
experienced, seasoned guy, yeah. So, I mean, I feel like Haney, on paper he should win. He's a very, very good boxer, very talented boxer. So, I mean, I'm leaning towards Devin Haney to win that fight, but you never know. You know what I mean? We got to see how the time off has affected him because he hasn't fought in a year. So, how he comes back from the ring rust. You know, if there's any ring rust, he might be just, you know, sharpened. I don't know.